Welcome back to our Cael Live language series. Today we are going to finish writing the long essay that we began several weeks ago. We're going to write the concluding paragraph for our essay, and we'll double check that the entire piece has coherence and flows together smoothly. All right, so we'll do one more little recap of last week's episode so that we can review the question and add on today. So we have been working on part 4 of the Cael test, which is the long writing piece. We know we have 35 minutes to complete this entire essay, and we will be evaluated on how well we can take information from both the reading and listening sources in order to help write this essay. Now, we can use ideas from the source, but we have to write about them in our own words. So we can't just copy directly from the text. The essay itself should be at least 250 words. We can go over that without being penalized, but we have to achieve at least 250. And the word counter is right here on the computer screen, so that will help keep us on track. We will always be evaluated on how well we use information from the source material and how accurately those details are. The structure will be considered as well. This is an essay, so we have to write this in proper paragraph structure. And our vocabulary too should demonstrate an academic quality and should also show a nice range. And here's the question we've been looking at. The question says, should scientists go back and reanalyze established conclusions and facts, or should we spend time on new questions and new research instead? So the first part of this question asks us to explain your position. This means that we have to select one of the two positions that the question demonstrates. We've been writing this essay all about position 1, which is the importance of returning to the past theories to reanalyze those. Now, once we have a position, we then have to build the argument. So this means then that you should be able to come up with at least 2 reasons why you feel that your position is valid. And once you've got those main reasons, you're going to look for supporting details. So this is where you return to both the reading and listening passages to select specific examples to support your ideas. Now, in the very first episode we created this outline. So we identified our position at the top, and we've come up with 2 main reasons why we feel that way. We made sure to include specific examples from both the reading and the listening in order to balance that out. That's where part of the score will come from. So it's important to include references to both sources. The next episode we completed, we wrote our introductory paragraph, and then we wrote both middle paragraphs. So this was main idea 1, and just last week we completed main idea 2. So the first 3 paragraphs of this essay are complete, and we are ready to add on right now. Now, we will write the concluding paragraph, but before we do that, we better double check that the entire essay so far has coherence. So we need to see that all parts of the essay are going to flow together and connect smoothly. So what we can see here in the top box is our position statement and the main ideas. So this is the very last sentence of that introductory paragraph. And right below that in this bottom box, we've got the topic sentence from that first main idea paragraph. So I'm going to read these out loud together, and we'll double check to make sure that they connect smoothly. We also want to make sure that we've not repeated the same vocabulary words over and over. So this one says, it is crucial that we reanalyze past conclusions and revise faulty ideas before forging ahead with new research. We must reveal biased viewpoints and amend inaccurate ideas to more clearly understand the world in which we live. Personal biases often distort the truth, so historians should review past theories to gain a more accurate perspective of events. The coherence there, I think, is okay. I think that blends fairly smoothly, so I'm not too worried about adding transitions. I will double check that my information, though, is accurate and I've not repeated too many words. So here is my actual position. You can see in the introductory paragraph, and again in that next body paragraph 1, we've indicated that returning to past theories is the most important way to go. The language here is varied, so I'm not too worried about repetition. The reason why we should prioritize those past theories is in yellow here. And again, looking at the words I've used, I've got enough variety there. I've said the same thing, but using different language. And that's how these paragraphs should be structured. Now, the whole focus of this main idea 1 is all about personal biases. And they come specifically from that first main reason I included in that introductory paragraph. So up top, I've said biased viewpoints, and down below, I've said personal biases. So the same idea is there, but the language has been changed just a little bit to show variety. So I think I'm off to a good start. I think our introductory paragraph and the beginning of this next paragraph flow quite well together. Let's continue this process. Let's look now at the very concluding sentence of that first body paragraph. That's what's up top. And then the beginning of that second main idea is at the bottom. So again, I'll read these out and we'll double check that they do connect together smoothly. And we'll also have a look for repeating vocabulary. So we have here, only by reanalyzing previous conclusions can modern historians uncover subjective accounts and more precisely depict past events. Questioning past accounts is important because revising incorrect theories allows us to more accurately understand the world in which we live. This phrase right here in this next paragraph is really familiar. I know I've seen it before. And if I go back to that introductory paragraph that we just talked about, I used almost the exact same phrase here. You can see this is far too much repetition. So I'm going to have to rewrite one or the other. Now, I think I'd like to leave my introductory paragraph alone. It's really important to set up my entire essay and it's finished. So let's not worry about the introduction. I think it's much easier to rewrite this topic sentence here in the paragraph. So we'll say the same thing. We don't want to change the idea. It's the language that we want to vary. So let's try this. If we said, perceive our natural surroundings more accurately, that means to more clearly understand the world in which we live. So at least we've gotten rid of that repetitive vocab and we haven't changed the meaning, which is a good thing. We liked the meaning the way it was. So that's one little problem fixed. There's one other addition I'd like to create here. I noticed that these two paragraphs don't really blend together very easily at all. I'd like to add one sentence of transition into the second body paragraph. So before I get into my main focus there, I'd like to acknowledge what I have been talking about so far in this essay. That's going to create unity, which is important in an essay structure. So I'm actually going to write an entire sentence. I'm going to start this second paragraph like so. I have, encountering biased historical accounts is not the only reason why questioning past theories is important. Okay, so I've acknowledged or summarized the main idea from my last paragraph, all about personal bias. And once again, I've reminded the reader that I'm prioritizing returning to past theories. Okay, so that again is setting up a nice cohesion all the way through my essay. I'm supporting the same main position. I now need to introduce, though, the topic sentence of this paragraph. So that comes next. I've got, we must also revise incorrect theories to perceive our natural surroundings more accurately. So I felt it was necessary just to add that simple transition also. What that means is I'm creating yet another reason why it's important to return to the past. And you notice that by rewriting this paragraph structure a little bit, I've had to take out a few words within that structure. So I removed the word words allows us because now it blends together more smoothly. So I'm much happier now with the transition from the first main idea to the second main idea. I have created, though, another problem that I need to fix. This isn't a difficult one, at least. I've created yet another repetition. So I've used that word theories twice. This is an easy one to fix. I'm just going to rewrite that second word like so. So I might say, we must also revise the errors we discover to perceive our natural surroundings more accurately. So again, my meaning is clear, but my language is varied, so I can move on accordingly. So that's where we've ended up so far. We've got all three paragraphs from the introduction to those two main reasons in the middle. And this is what we've done. Our position's at the top, and you can see from our outline what our two main ideas were. So now it's time to write the concluding paragraph. And a conclusion basically summarizes the main points that you made and restates your thesis or your position. It might also leave a thought ahead to a next step or to a future event. It depends a little bit on your topic. So to get started with this concluding paragraph, we need to consider how we're going to both summarize these main ideas and connect them back to the position there at the top. So all three of these items need to be included or referenced in the conclusion, but again, using different language. So I know when we wrote those two middle paragraphs for the main ideas, we focused on creating a cause and effect relationship. I think for the conclusion, we're going to take a slightly different approach. What I would like to do is to predict the consequences. So in other words, what are some negative results that might happen if we don't revise past errors? If I can present it that way, hopefully my reader will agree with me that it's really important then to make sure that those past theories are correct. That's really why we've been writing this entire essay. So to predict something that could happen, I'm going to write an if clause. Okay, so this again hasn't yet happened, I'm imagining. So I'm using that word if to start off this sentence to establish that as a prediction. So I might say, if subjective historical accounts are accepted as truth and passed to future generations without question, now I've got to identify the consequence. I can think of two things that could happen that would both be negative. But first off, if again we pass along all of these half-truths or distorted truths, I'm concerned that people living in today's generation, so modern society, will not have a very accurate understanding of the world. So again, that kind of summarizes some of the main points we've been making. But we can also look ahead a little bit to future. So future research then would also be inaccurate because it would be based on flawed logic, right? So if untruths are passed along, it just makes sense then that they would continue to be passed along into the future. So I'm going to incorporate both of these consequences into my concluding paragraph in a way to summarize all the ideas I've been talking about. So again, looking back up at the top there with my if clause, it says, if subjective historical accounts are accepted as truth and passed to future generations without question, modern generations risk reaching inaccurate conclusions about the world that has shaped their lives. So that takes care really of this first negative consequence. Okay, now we need to add in that second idea below. So let's try this. We'll start with the transition furthermore. That's a nice academic transition. That means we're adding on. So furthermore, future research would be flawed if it is based on faulty source material. Okay, so I've summarized that idea fairly nicely. The last thing I want to do here is to restate my position. I'm going to end this entire essay by once again reminding the reader how important it is to return to past conclusions to reanalyze them. So that will really emphasize the importance of my position. So in one sentence, I'm going to say, for this reason, re-evaluating past theories should take priority over initiating new projects. Okay, so I feel like we've summarized our main points and even considered the next step looking ahead. So just to make sure everybody can see where these ideas are coming from, in your conclusion, you're not creating new ideas. This is not the time to add in another main reason. The conclusion should strictly summarize the main points that have been made and leave the reader perhaps with a last thought to think ahead about the next step. So again, you can see our outline here at the bottom of your screen. So the position we restated right here in the end. All right, we chose to finish the essay by restating the position itself. The first main idea, talking about personal biases distorting the truth. We use the language subjective historical accounts. And we've also changed up the language here, so inaccurate conclusions. So you can see how the ideas are the same, but the language is different. And again, that's what we want to make sure we're doing. So we've summarized our first main idea then in this paragraph. That second main idea where we talk about revising mistakes to understand the world, you can see again how the language has been varied, but the idea itself is still there. So we've effectively and simply, the conclusion doesn't have to be long. We've got, 3 sentences or so. So I think we've summarized those ideas quite well. And the last thing I will double check with us all is to make sure we've actually answered the question correctly. So again, the question said, should scientists go back and reanalyze established conclusions and facts? So that was the position we chose to write about all the way through this essay. And you can see that we've restated that in the final sentence in our concluding paragraph. And remember the other half of this question talked about, or should we spend time on new questions and new research instead? And that's why we added that little phrase at the end of our position statement. We've said that re-evaluating past theories should take priority over initiating new projects. So again, we've acknowledged the other side of the argument that we didn't choose to write about, and we've written about it in a way that suggests that it's weak. It's not a priority. We really should focus on past research first. So the raters should be happy then with the way that we've fully addressed this question. So all in total here's our essay complete. All right, the first 2 paragraphs are there. You can see the introduction at the top and that first main reason, talking about personal biases in the bottom. And then here are the other 2 paragraphs. Main reason 2 is at the top. This is the one where we say we need to go back and fix any mistakes we find. And then the conclusion there is at the bottom. Now you'll notice that this essay is quite long. It's 418 words. On the Cael test, we are asked to include at least 250 words. So we're definitely going to achieve the minimum. We will not lose marks for going over the word count because there is not a maximum word count for Cael. But keep in mind, on the Cael test, you've only got 35 minutes to complete this entire essay, including the time it takes to proofread it back. So on the real test, you might not have time to write quite as much detail. This second body paragraph in particular, the listening passage that we wrote about, is quite long. All right, so we've practiced together over these last few weeks taking evidence from the source and incorporating them into our writing. So that's great. But on the real Cael test, again, you might not have quite enough time to include all of these details. Just be conscious of that. If you can write 400 words in 35 minutes, great. If not, it's okay to make these paragraphs a little bit shorter and less detailed. Okay, you still need to reference the reading and listening sources with as much specific detail as possible, but you also have to finish on time. So I just wanted to emphasize that. It's really important to keep an eye on the timer. All right, let's wrap up then what we did with our long writing strategies. So the first thing that I strongly encourage all of us to do is to take 3 or 4 minutes even and create that outline. That's how we started this series about 4 episodes or 5 episodes ago. Make sure you've written down your position you'll support and select at least 2 main reasons why you feel that way, and find some specific examples from both the reading and listening sources to write this essay. Once you've got those ideas in front of you on a piece of paper, you're ready to draft the essay out. I would suggest 4 paragraphs is probably enough for a 35-minute time frame on the Cael test. So that means you'll have 2 main reasons or 2 body paragraphs. All right. Paraphrase ideas. So don't just copy word for word from the reading passage or the listening. Make sure that you're using your own vocabulary as you express these ideas. Okay, you might now and then quote a very specific term if it's important to your writing. And in that case, in the essay itself, you would put that term in quotation marks. But for the most part, it's really not necessary to use specific language that you're copying word for word from the source. You know, you'll impress the readers much more if you use your own vocabulary. Proofread your work. Remember, this is towards the end of the entire Cael test, and you'll be tired. So sometimes we make silly mistakes. Sometimes we make a spelling mistake or we forget a word and things like that. So take 3 minutes even at the end, hopefully. Double check your vocabulary and sentence structure are both complex and academic. Make sure you've got a good variety. You don't want to repeat yourself. You know, we did that a few times as we saw today. So we were able to catch that and rewrite a few words and phrases just to make sure we had more of a variety. Correct any mistakes you find. They might be writing, grammar, spelling, punctuation. You know, make sure you've got the essay is as strong as you can get it before that timer reaches 0. Check for that coherence too as you read the whole thing back from start to finish. Okay, again, adding sometimes a word here or a sentence there just to connect the ideas together. It really improves the overall quality of the essay, and it usually doesn't take too much time to do so. We only added in, I think, one sentence today, so that would not have taken much time as we proofread the work. So here's your time management plan. We'll leave it at this for today. Again, I would say it takes you, 30 seconds to read the question and pick your position. Make sure you pick one really quickly. And then if you spend even 3.5 minutes more outlining ideas, so that's a total of 4 minutes, that will afford you close to a half hour to write this entire essay. So you have around 28 minutes or so to write out 4 paragraphs. And then that would leave you, again, with some time to proofread. So you should have about 3 minutes left over at the end to make sure it's as correct as you can get it. All right, so we have finished this long writing piece for Cael. It was a lot of work, but we stuck with it and we got it done. Join me next week as we continue to practice our skills.